Hey everyone, this is Kalie Blevins from Madison County High School in Danielsville, Georgia. It's my 6th year teaching agricultural education, but my first year with digital learning. So we are home today in case we get some severe weather later, like many of you may be. So we're going to film this from the dining room table. But I imagine many of us are probably not watching anyway. You're listening as you're checking your greenhouse or commuting to or from work, since we are certainly in the March Madness of FFA world with proficiency prep and state convention and state CDE prep, along with testing and everything else that goes on with school this time of year. So I appreciate you taking a few minutes to listen in, and hopefully I'll be able to share something to just encourage you or to give you a few ideas about how to involve our communities more in our FFA programs and agricultural education programs. As I was thinking about how we involve our communities and what that can mean for our programs, I was thinking about my own experiences growing up and wanted you to think about that as well, and think about the community that you grew up in and what programs were really supported there. So it could have been anything from FFA to basketball to fine arts, but think about what those programs were, and then think about why did those programs have such strong support. There are a lot of possible reasons for that support, but I think that one would certainly be that there has been a generational effect of students coming through a program and having a really high quality experience. So whether that's a sport or whether it's a fine arts program or a CTAE program like agricultural education, I think that if we looked at the communities where we would think that support is the strongest, we would find parents and community members and business leaders and elected officials who came through that program and had a great experience and wanted to support that experience for future generations, or are encouraging their own children to go through that. So some of us are reaping the harvest of seeds that were planted in a really high quality program that may have been there for years. And so we may be just trying to add on to that community support. And for some of us, maybe we are planting those seeds and it may be years before we see a harvest. But thinking about greenhouse terms, since most of us are getting ready for plant sales, I was thinking about some of our perennial efforts and some of our annual efforts. So when we think of a perennial, a long-term investment or a long-term plant, I think that what we can lose sight of sometimes in the rush of thinking about 100 other things we could put on our to-do list to involve our community is the importance of just providing a high quality experience for our students in the classroom every day. And again, sometimes we see that pay off immediately, or we are seeing the effects of that as we have students whose parents came through a strong agricultural education program. And sometimes we may be educating an entire community about what agricultural education is even supposed to look like, because maybe we're starting a new program or we're revitalizing a program that's lost some support or lost some steam in the last few years. So don't discount the importance of what you're doing in the classroom every day, because students who love our program continue to take classes in our program and advance in their SAEs and through FFA. And they'll spread the word to their friends, to their parents. Their parents will tell other parents. So again, don't take that for granted, that I think that's the most important thing that we can do. So rather than adding a ton of other to-dos for you today, I want to help us to think about some ways that we can involve our community in activities we're already doing that provide a high quality experience for our students. So it's kind of an as-you-go approach. As we're already doing this, how could we involve our community in a way, especially as we're a little less connected in some ways because of the pandemic. So what I'm going to give you today are maybe some annual efforts, if we're going to use another plant term, some short-term investments that we can make that we may see a quick return on. And some of us may feel like this is really tough, because if you live in a more transient community where people are moving in and out, it may be hard to build up traction if you feel like, well, people don't stay here and have families and get involved in the community for multiple years at a time. And so it may feel like what you're doing in the classroom isn't having that long-term community support effect. But hopefully some of these other ideas will give you some traction in building that support a little more quickly. My first as you go is as you practice. So if you're anything like we have been the last few months, it has certainly been a challenge to figure out how to hold all of the different practices as CDE schedules have been moved around. And as we practice, we found that it has been very valuable to invite community members to be a part of that process. So, and when I say community, we're talking about business leaders, elected officials, parents, even teachers and administrators within the school. I think our school can be an easily neglected part of our community to help our school understand as a whole the value of our program and what we provide for students. So as we practice CDEs, one activity that we tried to hold the last several years is a family night. And we don't do this for every CDE, but for ones that lend themselves to this, we try to make it an option. So for instance, every year we'll hold a parliamentary procedure family night. So whether we have one team or if we have a conduct and a senior Parley Pro team and even a middle school team, then we'll host a dress rehearsal of sorts for those students and try to have either a covered dish meal, which we did not do a potluck this year. We just had some pre-made cupcakes from a local bakery so that we could keep things a little more safe. And we moved that event outside as well. But it also gives the parents an opportunity to see exactly what we do. Now, our students who have livestock projects, the parents and oftentimes are very involved and get to see what that competition looks like and what their students are doing every day. But some of our other FFA events can be a little more mysterious because parents can't watch, they can't go, they can't see. The closest they get is coming to a convention or an area banquet or a chapter banquet to see awards. So we try to peel back the curtain a little bit for our parents and other family members to see exactly what their students are doing. And I found that to be very helpful in garnering support for those students and just helping them understand what all our students can do. We've done that for parliamentary procedure. It's also been helpful with some events that maybe we have more students that want to participate than we have spots. So for instance, floral design is a single person event, but we always have more than one student who wants to participate in floral design. So if we have 3 or 4 or 5 students who have been practicing, we've tried to have a family night where the students and their families can come together and make an arrangement and show them the skills that they've been learning. And it also provides some recognition and an opportunity to celebrate the students who may not be moving on and representing our chapter in the event. And I think that means a lot to the students and to the parents to take extra time to provide that for those students. The next one is, sorry about that. In addition to CDE family nights, we also try to invite community members into our CDE or proficiency interview practices. And a lot of times they're really willing to do that. And Zoom has made that a lot more possible and convenient for people if they're working or working from home or traveling, or even if we have friends or contacts in other states, then that format has been really helpful in providing some more perspective for our students. And again, it just gives them a look into what's actually happening. So as an example, we had several community members over the last couple of weeks that have helped provide practice ag sales calls for our ag sales team. But there are tons of ways that you can involve your community in that. And it also takes a little pressure off of you as well from having to provide the entire practice experience for the whole time. So here we go. Second one, as we teach. So this is something that you're probably already doing, but identifying and finding those guest speakers and experts in our communities that could provide a little bit of outside perspective for our students on a particular career or a particular content area. My teammates, Catherine Bell and Josh Daniel, do a really good job of this, of bringing in industry experts to work with their classes and to bring them some new information. And it just provides a fresh face in the classroom as well and lets them interact with your students and be more involved as well. Another part of As You Teach is to invite other teachers and administrators into our classrooms. And this can sound a little bit intimidating because it's kind of like adding an extra observation, a little bit of observation stress maybe into our day. But anytime we're having a really cool lab or a really neat activity, I try to give my administrators a heads up so that they can come and see. And I think that it's valuable for them to get to see those really neat things that we do. And sometimes they see those on a regular observation. And sometimes maybe it's not the coolest, newest thing when they happen to pop by, especially if they're just popping in your classroom once or twice a semester. But actually extend the invitation and make them feel welcome. And if there's an activity that they can be helpful with, then that's also another opportunity. One activity that we have done several times in our leadership class is having a mock job interview set up. And we've had several community members and administrators and teachers who had their planning period during that class to come and be interviewers. And that has been a really fun activity. And it's been neat for our students to see that their teachers and administrators care about what they're doing in their ag class. So I would certainly recommend that. Next up might sound like a little bit of an odd one, but to involve our communities as we shop. So I think there's been a lot of encouragement to shop locally, especially as we were reducing our travel over the last year. And you've probably found some local gems in reference to shops or to restaurants, and to be supportive of those. So in one way, to be supportive as we're buying our classroom supplies. So I realize that sometimes Amazon or the big box stores can get it to us a little bit cheaper. But if your school will work with a purchase order with a local retailer, even if it's a little more expensive, I think that pays off in the long haul. Just thinking about last spring and how many of us were scrambling with our plant sales. We were getting ready to go right before spring break is typically when we hold ours. We went into shelter in place, and so that meant that we could not hold ours. So we were scrambling. We had a greenhouse full of beautiful plants and no way to get them to people. And our local hardware store and garden center stepped in and bought our plants and sold them to our community members, which was huge. And I think that part of that is that a lot of those employees have had a positive experience with our program and that we do a lot of business there. So I think that can really help our programs if we will make an effort to shop locally when it's possible and when it's financially feasible. And then just to shop locally just personally for ourselves. I think that being a familiar face and a face that's invested in our community that shop owners and business owners and restaurant owners know and recognize makes it a lot easier to go and approach them about supporting through a silent auction or supporting through sponsorship. So I think that working close by or shopping close by can be really helpful. It also can provide you with some opportunities for jobs for your students. I found just shopping even at a local interior store here, or home interior store here in Isla that does some floral work. I was just shopping on my own, nothing for school one day. And because I've been in there a good bit and they know that I teach, they were asking me about some students that might be interested in helping there or working there. Same way around the holidays when the local garden center was starting Christmas trees and they were going to do live wreaths and they were looking for some floral design students. So just being a familiar face and being available and popping in and keeping your program on their minds, I think can provide some SAE opportunities for students as well. My next as you go is as you play. So again, it may be something that's a little unconventional, but it's something that many of us do. I think that there's a lot of community support to be had by supporting our students in other activities. So whether that's going to their concerts or athletic events or whatever else they have going on, I think that it shows the parents who are there, the students, the administrators, other teachers and coaches who may be there, how much you value the kids that we share, and makes it a little bit easier to work together when you might need to pull a kid out of baseball practice for a CDE, or ask a teacher if this student can leave class a little bit early to compete in an online CDE format. Whatever it might be, I think that there's a lot to be gained by showing support for students and whatever they're doing, even when it's not our FFA programs. And I've really found that some students that maybe weren't quite as engaged and didn't see something in FFA for them, that when we show interest in their activities and what they're interested in, then they see that we really care and they continue to take our classes. And sometimes it's a little bit of a later bloomer, but a lot of times their junior or senior year, they finally hop on board and start getting involved. So I think there's just a lot to be gained by going and participating in the other activities that they are. And it's a great activity you can take your spouses or kids to, as well, in a way for them to be involved and to meet some of your students and meet your administrators. And I think that's always a good thing. And it warms my heart anytime my family can be involved too. Next up is as you share. So this one I feel like is the hardest for me and the one that I fail at the most, but it's really, really helpful when I make it a priority. So as you're probably already doing, the newspaper, social media, if a newsletter is something that's important to your community, trying to do that. And I get it. This can really feel like this whole other thing that you just don't have time to do. And a great FFA reporter can really help you with this. But just setting aside a little time, like every Monday, I know that I need to spend a little time with an article, or even if it's just getting the kids pictures and results from a CDE. Sometimes I get it. We don't have time to do a full-fledged article on top of everything else. But just getting something in there when at all possible. And again, we don't excel at this and get this done every single week. But as much as possible, we try to. And that really helps as well. And finally, as far as events go, I know that every community is a little bit different right now in terms of what regulations and restrictions and guidelines look like. But when possible, continue on with what you do. Just move it outside and keep distance. We've moved several of our activities, particularly last summer, as we were trying to move forward but keep everyone safe. It was really important to us to have an in-person banquet, and that was really important to our officer team and our students. And so we were just racking our brains trying to figure out what that might look like. And we finally settled on moving it outside into an amphitheater format. We didn't shake or have students come to the front during the program, but we had them stand with their families. And then we had just cupcakes and other easy to serve food that they could pick up and enjoy just in an outdoor setting. And while it certainly looked different and had a different feel and maybe wasn't quite as flashy and sophisticated, I think that it meant a lot to students to have those in-person opportunities. And they're really hungry for that and hungry for interaction with people. So anytime that you can provide a safe way to do that outside or in a distance setting, I would certainly encourage you to do that. The final way that I almost forgot was just becoming a part of other community activities and organizations. Our young farmer teacher, Miss Jones, does an awesome job of this, and her flexible schedule, as other young farmer teachers have as well, really make this an option where sometimes we wouldn't be able to necessarily attend all of the different civic organization meetings, but finding out whatever's important in your community and what's really involved. So things like the Rotary Club, Lions Club, if you have a pilot club, also all of the ag organizations as well. So your cattlemen's chapter, if you have one, young farmers, the Farm Bureau board, whatever it is that you have, FFA alumni, which if you don't have one, I would certainly encourage you to get one and to encourage great parents and community members to take the lead on that. But one thing that we have done as a teaching team is to split up, and it can certainly be overwhelming to think about attending 4 or 5 meetings a month. We would be talking about being away from our families one night every week on top of CDEs and other trips and other things that we have going on. And so we've split that up where if I go to Young Farmers this month, then Catherine Bell may go next month and Josh Daniel may go next month. The same thing with Cattlemen's and alumni, where we try to have a teacher there. And again, that doesn't always work. Sometimes our schedules get crazy and sometimes we just have to breathe to get ready for the next marathon coming, much like we have in March right now. But when possible, just having a seat at the table, having a student there when possible to give an FFA update about things that are going on and what's coming up, and to give results of how things have been going is really helpful. So just think about ways that you could be involved in your community in that way. Again, a lot of these things are not super novel. I feel like a lot of us are already doing these, or we may be feeling like we're overwhelmed with everything going on and can't add anything else to the plate. But I hope that maybe something that we've talked about today will be helpful for you as you provide this high quality experience for students that's going to pay off with your community now and even more so in the future. So thank you so much for joining me today, and I wish you the best as you finish out your school year.